Jensen Parker to the Brook Hill podcast today. Jensen, you were just to give a little bio from you. You were a Brook Hill camper. Was it like 3rd to 9th grade?
3rd to 9th grade.
So you were like a 7-year legacy camper. JC'd for two summers, and then were you a senior counselor? You've been senior counselor the last 2 summers.
Yes, sir.
And you are from Louisiana, but what college do you go to?
I go to the University of Arkansas.
Oh, let's go. All right. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover obviously a lot of leadership, a lot of different things like that.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about, I know you've been through a pretty traumatic wreck. I want to go through some of that. And so can't wait to get into all kinds of different leadership stuff. But before we do that, Olivia, we want to start with a game here. So we have a leaderboard. I believe 29 is the leader. To get into the top 5, I think you have to be 24 or 25, somewhere in there. So we'll see how you do.
So Callan has 27.
27 is
Callan.
Callan is 27. That's the leader, 27?
Yes, as of right now.
So that's what you're shooting for. All right. Now, this is a Brook Hill game because this is a Brook Hill podcast, all right? You have 30 seconds to name as many cabins, Brook Hill songs, or activities. All right?
Okay.
So you just want to ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. All right? You got it ready? You got it ready in your mind?
All right,
there will be a timer that throws up here. We will begin now.
Okay, Lipizans, Pintos, Palominos, Galicinos, Fillies, Chestnuts, Thoroughbreds, Arabians, Percherons, Bays, Blazers, Roans, Broncos, Mustangs, Morgans, Appaloosas, Pacers, Bamboo Tree, You Get a Line, I Get a Pole, Beaver Song, Frog Song, Bumblebee Song,
That is time. Good job. How many? What was unofficial? 23 unofficially.
Dang.
That's pretty good.
Dang.
That's pretty good. That may be good enough for top 5. We'll see unofficially because they have to go back through.
Of course.
So great job. Great job. All right. So Jensen, tell me about you growing up, going to camp.
I remember going through high school with working as a junior counselor and working under such incredible leaders. They just really inspired me to just, have to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable, leading people your age throughout sports or different activities in my community made me more comfortable doing so here as a counselor. And I've just seen throughout this summer and last summer so much growth with that and with what all they have poured into me as well, which has been awesome and incredible. And Kinsey has been able to do that as well. I mean, she was my best friend. She is my best friend, like you said, and we were able to lead together through the principles that Brook Hill taught us.
I love that. Can you think of any examples or stories of things that you used, being on staff, some of the things that we've taught in our leadership stuff? Can you think of stuff that really you've grabbed hold of and, okay, I really try and work on this, or, I can see where I used this in high school or even in college in your sorority or whatever. Can you see, because I know right now we can't be talking about what sorority, is that right or is that not right? Isn't it right now? I was talking with somebody the other day and they were like, right now I cannot say I'm neutral, but maybe it's because they're helping with recruiting or something.
Oh, yes. Well, certain people, if they're what's called a Gamma Chi, they're not really supposed to say.
Okay.
But I'm fine
You're
to
not
say
that?
No, sir.
So you can say what you are.
I can say yes.
What are you?
I'm a Tridel.
Tridel. All right. So you can proudly say that. Whereas
Yes,
I think I was talking to Julia and she's like, I can't say what I am. And I was like, okay, all right. So anyway, can you think of any examples where you've used some of that leadership?
Well, like you were talking earlier on the basketball team, we were state championships our junior year, and then my senior year, our coach had left. And so, as a sports person, going through challenges where you're having to have basically a startup year, brand new year, a growing year, that was hard for me to accept with it being my senior year. And I had to put aside, the thoughts of the flesh where it's all about me, my senior year, all this stuff. And I was able to just be like, all right, this is what we got to work with. Okay, this coach they may be new, but you have to be able to help this team and see in the future what they can be. So it was a lot of learning, just that we learned to serve here at camp, and for me it was having to put aside, like I said, those needs, those wants of the flesh, and just be able to see that you're doing this for others as well. And that was definitely a concept that is hard to take hold of, but it helped our team. They're growing, they're still growing, and it's because of leadership.
Yeah, and that was your senior year, but your junior year, y'all were state champs. Y'all were basketball state champs.
Yes,
that was
sir.
like you and Kinsey
That was
and others, and that can be tough because you went from
such a high.
Yes, and that was a big deal. Was that the first one y'all had won state?
Yes, our school in school history.
In school history of girls basketball or of like state champions, period.
Basketball.
Okay, girls basketball or had the guys ever won?
Basketball.
Uh-oh.
They got state runners up a couple years ago, but they had never won a championship either.
Jeez.
So it was crazy.
Okay, and then to go from that and to learn, because that's leadership. It's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
And to go from that moment to the next moment where you're maybe having to help the school rebuild or the team rebuild, maybe some of the seniors have moved on or whatever, that can be tough.
Yes, sir.
That can be tough to do that. And so did you have to have talks with the girls? Did you do anything there where you were like, all right, we gotta have good attitudes, blah blah blah. How did that go?
Yes, sir. Definitely we would have to have lots of talks just about recognizing that like it's our time to step up with the younger girls. So just pouring into them, encouraging them, like, once I'm here for one more year and it's your team.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to lead them as well.
Good.
And so it was through just pouring into them, just like the counselors here pour into us constantly. We constantly say about how we're building a legacy. We're building the next generation. We are pouring into those beneath us because we want them to replace us.
Yeah.
And if not, be better than us. And so that was what Kinsey and I wanted for our team, was for those younger girls to see that they can be leaders, and that once you encourage them and put that confidence in them that they can do it, then they can see themselves.
Yep. You were a big time camp, like you loved camp, Jensen.
I loved camp. I still love camp.
There are people that love camp. There's people that like camp, but then there's people like you that are obsessed with camp. You were just one of those campers, and I remember you started on Instagram. You love starting different Instagram pages. I think you have several, but my favorite was the Brook Hill Starter Pack. That was the one, and
I was not the only one.
You were not the only one.
I might have been the.
You were the main one. You were the leader of it for sure. Yes, and so you get different pictures. And
I feel like I'm being exposed right now.
Yes, no, we have to.
Yes, we do.
And I love because you're like, I want to delete it, but I don't know the password, and so you can't. And so it's there forever.
It is there forever. They say social media, what goes out there stays out there. That Instagram is out there for the entire world to see my middle school camp self.
That's right. What you did in middle school is still out there. I love it. But I loved that because it showed what kind of a heart you had. And then, a little inside baseball. I did know that was you because you had told somebody who had told me or something like that. They were supposed to keep it a secret, but they didn't. Might have been a former Chestnut. So, and then I remember your graduate year. Y'all were such a great group, and you ugly cried at graduation. I remember that. You were like, you were a blubbering mess. Your parents had to cart you off. I remember you were I don't want to leave. That was definitely you. What made you love Brook Hill so much like that? Like, what was, was it that you got to be yourself? Was it that, what can you define what made it so,
Honestly, amazing? For me, what made Brook Hill was the people. Like, you hear about summer camp, like, whatever they have, things, that kind of thing, but you can't replace people. And the people here, they are here for you. And I felt that from my very first third grade year. When the person who I came with my first year, I had no idea what Brook Hill was. She didn't even come back, And it's like year after year, I came back because those people constantly poured into me, chose me. You just feel wanted. And that was what made me want to come back year after year and love it so much, was because of those people that constantly poured into me. And now I love getting that opportunity to pour into others as well and have them get that same feeling,
I love that. How big do you think it is for this generation? I mean, do you think, and maybe even why do you think, that this generation is starving for that? Obviously, you had a great family, but what makes this, because I feel like this generation, even more than ever, I think, obviously, I've been here a long time. People have always loved being connected with, obviously. People love to feel special, but I feel like it's more than that now. And do you think that it's more than that now? Like they need that connection, and why do you think that is?
I've definitely felt that within these last 2 years as a senior counselor about how much these kids just need to be wanted. And like you said, like every single one of them, they're going through different things in their lives, They might have had some traumatic things happen to them as well. So it's just having, some people don't have that person that they can go to back home and be able to talk about the things going on in their lives. Or, maybe they're just not comfortable with it. And our world nowadays just they just constantly are just filled with so much negativity, and they need someone to be able to show them that there is a positive way out of things, that there is like a light that you can have in your life even when you don't feel it sometimes.
Absolutely. Where do you think that negativity comes from? Is that a social media thing? Is that a family thing? Do you think COVID plays? Do you think kids are more hungry for connection? Because we were literally told for, I don't know what it was, a year, 6 months, whatever, like stay away from other people. And I think for young people, adults maybe are fine, because I'm not saying it doesn't affect us, but for young people, I think it's everything to have that for their development. I mean, do you think all of the above, or what? What do you think is the majority of it?
Oh, it is for sure. COVID has definitely had a huge part on that. And I have felt that just in my own life. Getting to come to camp in the midst of all that craziness was like a safe haven. Like it was like a saving grace that I got to come here and just be able to connect with people still, because, you look at the time frame for a lot of us who are going through it at some peak moments in our lives. Like I remember being so angry that I couldn't even like talk to my friends my senior year,
Wow. So that was your
like,
senior year of high school.
Yeah. Like feeling like everything is just ripped from beneath you, and, you can't even see people's faces anymore. Like it's really hard. And I think that is why for sure that they're definitely starving for that connection even more now than ever, because they've missed so much of it and they're basically just playing catch up.
So what made you want to be a counselor? I mean, obviously you love Brookhill, but what was your motivation that you were like, I have to be a counselor, I want to be in charge of a bunkhouse? And then what is your message to the girls? I know every cabin, they tell stories and they have like a message that they want to encourage, and usually it identifies with kind of what was important to you. Why did you want to be a counselor? And what's your message to your girls?
The reason I wanted to be a counselor was just basically, to show these girls that they can have a role model and a leader that they can look up to, whether they have one at home or not. I know coming to camp that, like I've said, just having those people pour into you like I never had in my life, through, not saying, of course, I grew up in a great home, I went to a great school, but, Brookhill, it's just a different level of connection. And you can definitely see that in how much those counselors do care for their campers. And so I just wanted to be able to have that same, just being able to relate to them through their struggles, through their hardships, and just show them everything that Brookhill is, and that the Lord's presence is so great here. So we are able to, have those connections with them through him, for sure.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. One of the things that I wanted to talk with you about, on the podcast today, you and I talked about this, was Was it senior year?
Yes.
Was it senior year of high school? So senior year of high school. So junior year, you win the state championship, right?
So many
You know,
guys.
you're kind of queen of the world, right? You junior year, you had been at JC a summer. You were a leader. You and
Mhm.
Kinsey, you know, just all these. It's like your junior year was all these highlights, right?
So much.
Then you go into senior year. Senior year, COVID happens. Senior year, your basketball team was in a rebuilding year,
Mhm.
right? That was a big part of what you did. And then you have this kind of massive traumatic event and kind of set this up. When did this happen? When did you?
So it was October 3rd.
Okay.
I was driving home from a football game that I just cheered at. It was about 2 hours away, 2.5. So our bus like stopped at the school. I drove home. I live like 15 minutes away. So it was just like any other Friday night. And as I was driving home, I was probably about 1.5 miles from my neighborhood, something like that. And I was on a highway, and out of nowhere, a drunk driver came into my lane and hit me head on, going about 65, while I was going 60 at the same time. So,
And you were by yourself.
yes, sir. By literally, that was honestly the Lord, because I would bring people home from those games who lived in my neighborhood every single Friday, and for some reason, I just happened to be by myself that Friday, and
Wow.
it still is insane. But
And so what happened? You obviously you get hit head on. Did you kind of roll off the road? What
I
do you even remember?
well,
Or
so,
what people have told you?
the one thing I remember after we got hit, I mean, it felt like a punch in the chest, and like a gunshot, like a big boom just went off, and I remember just gripping my wheels so tight and closing my eyes and just feeling my car spin and spin and spin. And then I'm pretty positive I blacked out, because after the spins, I don't remember anything. And I remember just like feeling the car start to like hiss at me almost. And it was like I saw smoke everywhere. I thought my car was on fire, and immediately it was like I just went into like shock mode and like tried to unbuckle my seatbelt, and it was stuck. My door was stuck. Immediate panic just sinks in, you know. And I had to like climb out the back of my car, just scared that like it was gonna catch fire or something. And then I remember getting out, and there just being like 5 people just like crowd around me, and I look and I see that the other car is like flipped over in a ditch right beside me, which could have very well been my car as well. And somebody's helping them out of their car because they're stuck as well, and I'm just like shaking like in fear, panic. I don't know what to do. I call my dad. Apparently the police had already been called.
Wow.
And I don't know how long I was out, honestly. It could have been 3 seconds. It could have been 10 minutes.
The police had already been called to come get you guys, or the police had already called your parents?
The police had already been called to come get us.
Okay.
My dad showed up after I called him. I was on like 3% battery. And he showed up barefoot, drove straight from my house, got there like 15 minutes before the police did.
Oh, sure.
Angry as all get out. But I remember seeing a man like get out the car with a guitar, just asking where his beer was the entire time. And then a woman gets out who was the driver, and her neighborhood was actually, her parents' house was right outside. She was trying to turn in, and just instead of turning in, just swerved into my lane and started coming straight. And so she just walked off to her house before the police got there. And eventually
Did they get him? Did they get him in trouble and figure it out?
They did. There was a bunch of legal stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, with all that.
Yeah.
But It
Did
was
family and friends, did anybody drive by? I mean, if you were driving home from school,
everyone.
did they stop? Did everybody pull
Um,
over and stop to support? Did they even know it
well,
was you?
they didn't. It's a small town. So, there's that one highway and you hear a wreck, so you have to go all the way out to like the interstate to go around. So, apparently people tell me later that they're talking about how, oh, there's a wreck, gotta go around, take I-49 or whatever. Like, they don't think anything of it.
Okay.
And so one of my friends, she had driven by and like immediately pulled over and called my brother to tell him. My other brother and my mom were 2 hours away in a different town, asleep because it's 2 a.m.
Sure.
in the morning. And then my dad just ends up driving me to the hospital because they tried to put me in the ambulance with him and he refused. So,
But you literally, from a physical standpoint, walked away from this thing.
I did.
And y'all hit
By a
going.
miracle. I could show you a picture of my car and you would be wondering how I'm standing here today because it was completely mushing, totaled, my windshield, everything. Just, I walked away with a broken arm and...
You did have a broken arm.
not broken arm, broken nose, sorry.
Okay.
Broken nose.
Okay, because I was, yeah.
And one of my legs, my hip got a little messed up. So I was out of sports for about a month,
But
which was hard. But
from a physical standpoint, it could have been way worse. You were
so
wearing
much
your
worse.
seatbelt,
I was.
right? Had the airbag
The
and that
airbag,
kind
yeah.
of stuff.
And I think the airbag was what broke my
Oh,
nose.
I'm
they
sure,
said,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, which is a lot better than the steering wheel.
Then yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, but, I know the physical, like I kept saying, the physical part, that wasn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the emotional part, the mental part of this event,
Mm-hmm.
it stuck with you. This wasn't just, oh, I got in a wreck, I'm okay physically, so I'm okay. I mean, this kind of started a spiral for you.
It did.
That COVID didn't help.
Yeah.
And I remember it getting to the point, and the reason that I knew it was bad was your dad had called me
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, Brooke Hill's meant a lot to Jensen. I give you my permission. Would you please call her and check on her? And he was the one that told me about. I didn't know about this. He was the one that called, but it had obviously gotten to the point that he thought, I want to get as many of Jensen's people to call her and check on her. And did you ever go see a counselor?
I did.
Can you kind of take us through a little bit of that
yes, sir.
what that did in your life? Because I know there's people listening that, they've been through maybe not this type of a traumatic event, but it could be their own version. And you just kind of describe, you get into a dark place, just kind of talk about it.
For sure. Mental health was definitely not anything that I ever thought too much about, which is kind of horrible to say out loud, but until it affected me personally, it was definitely something that, I just saw as like way over there. But after the wreck happened, of course, I would say I would have like mini panic attacks probably. Definitely like, trouble sleeping at night, all of those awful mental side effects. I didn't drive for about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
It took me a while to drive at night, probably like 4 or 5 months. Simply because it was like any sort of riding in the car with someone and a soft tap on the brakes would completely just mess me up. And, emotionally, I was feeling very just damaged and broken inside. I was angry, I had a lot of anger in my heart just towards that woman. And, honestly, I was angry at God for a while, just like, why would he allow this to happen to me? And all these thoughts just began to fill my head, and the just anxieties with driving and it being my senior year, and just, the depressions of feeling like I was the only one, going through this, and that no one understood my hurt, were a lot. I did see a counselor for, I want to say, about 7-8 months until the end of my senior year.
Wow.
I was seeing a counselor, and this happened in October.
Mm.
So it was a lot to deal with. You have, of course, I had an army backing me up the entire time. But it was like all the joy just came out
Right.
of me.
Right.
For a
And
while.
that's what you're not a down person.
Mm-mm.
You are full of life,
Yes.
crazy, fun, positive. Like just what I even knew of you at that point, you were one of the most positive people. And I remember talking to you on the phone, and I was like, "This is Jensen." I was worried
Yeah.
about you, and then of course we saw you 2 months later
Mm-hmm.
at Turkey Day, and you were still, you were still in a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
You were dealing, and I'd even talked to you about, hey, you're writing in for camp soon, and you were like, I don't know. And that,
I did.
and that's when I was like, it's not Jensen,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a process, going through something like that and healing. That was a process. Take us through that. Were there a lot of ups and downs? Were there days that you felt better and then you didn't, and then would something trigger it? Gosh, you talk about not being able to drive, but I could imagine riding with people could almost be worse.
It was. And I laugh about it now,
Sure.
having to drive 6.5 hours to school. Driving does not bother me at all. Like, I love to drive.
Wow.
I might not be the best driver, but I do. I love it. And if you would have saw me a year and a half ago from now, like, I would not be able to say that, because it was like any time I rode in the car, like, immediate, like, flashbacks. I had to drive past where my wreck happened every single day, because that was the only road to get into town. And I remember just, like, seeing, like, the grass marks of my tire from when it went in there, and I could see in the ditch the marks from where their car was for months.
Wow.
And, like, I would look at that every single time I passed it, and would just be like, I couldn't go a day without thinking about it. I still honestly don't go a day without thinking about
Still
it.
today.
Just because, it did have such a great effect on my life. And, now looking back, like, I wasn't even able to talk about it for a long time, just because of, like, the memories and the triggers. Like, there would be times, like you said, ups and downs where, later in the year, I want to say probably I'd been driving for like a month or so, but it would be like, just one little word about it would just upset me, and I would break down. Or one time, even riding with one of my friends, I had been driving, but riding with one of them at night, hard brake right in front of where it happened, panic attack, And so that was really hard for me to overcome, just like never having to deal with that before. And I just remember praying and praying daily that it would stop. And eventually, I don't know what it was, sometime in February, I was at church. And that next week, I was listening to what they were speaking that day. And that next week, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to drive. And it's going to be fine.
Wow.
And I did. And it was hard. Little by little, I would get closer and closer to where the wreck happened. Me and my mom would ride in the car together, and I would go to the movie theater, and then to the skating rink, and then to the bank, and like closer and closer each day. We just took baby steps of how close I could get before I could just drive past that, because I just had such a mental block with it. That was super hard, but
that's so good. Is that something y'all strategized, like with your counselor and your
Yes.
parents? Was that the strategy that they were like just a
was.
little bit at a time? I think that's so good, of a strategy there to be able to work toward, getting
Just small goals.
right.
Day.
That's right. I think sometimes it can be easy to say, "Well, just get over it." I mean, did you ever feel like there were, because I'm sure you had a lot of breakdowns, and people I feel like are understanding for a little bit, but I think over time when people don't understand, they have trouble having empathy.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that from people? Like, I mean, obviously I know your parents were very empathetic, but people who just maybe were a little farther away, did you ever kind of feel like people were rolling their eyes or a little bit at you? Or maybe not. Maybe people were great on it.
Actually, so it was almost the other way around. I felt like such a burden. Like I was mad at myself
Interesting.
for like this still happening to me. I was like, why am I still getting upset? Why is this still having such a hold on me? Like I just wanted to be done with it. I wanted to just like drive, be fine, no more panic attacks, upset, like anything like that. And I remember like one day just like crying in the bathroom with some of my friends, and they're just like constantly over and over again like, no, like this is like you have every right to feel like this.
Good.
Because like you look around, and I remember in school like just thinking like, oh, these people look at me like I'm just a little pity, like poor me, so I definitely did feel that.
So it was more you put that on yourself. So you're saying you were the one going, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, like
everybody else is like, no, it's okay. So for you, your experience it was the other way around, that you were like, I can't be doing this,
because I didn't want people
right
to think of me like that.
Okay. So you're pretty self-aware.
My competitiveness was like, all right, I gotta beat this,
That's right. Which that's just who you are, and I know that about you. So I like that. What were some of the things that they taught you? I like the baby steps thing. Were there any mechanisms? I'm sure they said it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
Here's some of the things. Was there anything that really grabbed hold of that they were coaching you with to be able to walk through this? What were some of the advices that you were given?
So actually, one thing that like I told you, I had a lot of like anger and hurt build up towards that specific person, and just towards like like who would think to get behind the wheel. Like I just had so much anger towards that. And one thing that my counselor really spoke into me was to write them a letter. Wow. And like not like mail it or anything, but just like write down all of my feelings towards them, everything I wish I could say but that I wouldn't say to them. And, just like burn it up, throw it in a fire or something. Just get rid of it, Like don't hold on to it.
Good.
But just write it down, write your feelings, and throw it in the fire. And so for me, that was honestly just like, it brought a lot of healing, just being able to pour all of that out. Every burden that I was carrying, every like pain and hurt that I had in my heart, I was just able to just write it all down and get rid of it. And never try and think twice of it again,
That's so good.
It was really good. It honestly brought me back to my first turkey day, when I remember we had a piece of paper. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes.
But we went into the hangout, or there was like a bunch of little fires set up, and you had your box or your paper.
It was the box.
And
you put the paper in the box. Yes.
And you threw it in the fire. And that was like what you were letting go of. That was what you were getting rid of in your heart. And
we got to do that again.
We do.
We got to do that.
So much healing.
All right. You got to remind me. We're doing that this turkey day. I don't know what the theme's going to be, but it's going to be burn the box or something. I don't know. We got to figure that. Maybe that's not too cool. We got to figure out something better than that. So, that's so good, Jensen. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and being able to share something like this, because I know that there's a lot of young people out there, that would listen to this, who've been through a traumatic event. And like I said, maybe like that, not like you have. What would you say, if you had a camper come up to you, if you had somebody, what would be some of the encouragements that you would give them based on your experience? Because, sometimes I think whenever you're in a dark place, I don't think you see a way out. I don't think, I think you get very, um, you only see what's right in front of you and
Yeah.
you can't see past it. And so when you can't see past it, when you're not getting past something very quickly, I think there's a temptation that you think, I'm not going to get past it.
Mhm.
And then I think that's when the give up, you know what I'm saying, the depression and the give up and the quitting and it starts to happen of, maybe it would be better if I wasn't here kind of thing, So what would you
Mhm.
say to somebody who, would, if they were in your prayer line or whatever at
Yeah.
camp or whatever, what would you say to them? What would be some of the advice you'd give them?
For me, I would say just to realize that like you don't have to overcome that alone. What was so hard for me was that I kept trying to fight those battles by myself. I didn't want to talk to my therapist about it. I didn't want to talk to my family and my friends and all those people who were pouring into me, who were there for me in that dark time. I didn't want to speak to them, and it was just being able to be vulnerable and open up and lay all of it out there and just show that, like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, and just having those people being able to back you up and to know that, like, there is a light, there is light at the end of that tunnel, that you don't have to give up right now, that you don't have to stop, because you will be able to overcome it, whether you feel like that right now or whether you feel like that 6 months from now,
God, that's so good. I feel like the more that I dive into mental health and the more that I've learned, I feel like that seems to be the one central theme
Mm-hmm.
is don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And that it's literally from every counselor, to every suicide prevention person,
Yeah.
every person I've talked to, that's literally, so that's been kind of the message I've tried to give when I do a pitiful job of trying to share on mental health. But, that's been the theme that I've heard, and I've been echoing that of tell somebody, talk to somebody, open up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's all kinds of reasons. I guess for you, it was maybe the pride of,
Mm-hmm.
I should be better than this. I should be stronger than this. And I
Yeah.
think because that's your personality. Maybe someone else would be, they won't understand, or, they'll you make fun of me. I don't know. I think everybody's got a reason why, but regardless of the reason, it's the fact that they're not telling people.
Yeah.
And so that obviously you had a lot of people pushing you to open up. I know I was one of them that,
Yes.
here we are talking about it on a podcast, but I know I was one of the ones that did that. And I just kind of made you, we hugged it out at Turkey Day, and I was like, we're going to get through this, because that was 2 months in. And, so that was, gosh, that was less than 25% of the way through your healing. And so, we always tried to tell you we were in your corner, and I hope you felt that from us.
For sure.
We were always, I think I tried to check on you a few times throughout
yes,
that year.
And I did feel that, I don't know who you told, but I remember getting texts from former counselors, from like my fellow counselors, just checking in on me. And it was nice to know that, like, even like, yes, I had the people who were physically there for me and like in that moment, but like also knowing that there were people, who had me in their prayers, who were also fighting in my corner, whether they were there, whether I felt them or not.
Yeah, I put it in our counselor group me.
That would be why then. That would be why.
I called people and I was like, hey, I want you to check on her. And so, I called a few people like Claudia. I think Claudia was probably my go-to. But then I also put it in the group. Yeah. So it's like, hey, y'all got to reach out to her. So, because that's what it's all about. And you've seen us do that even with other people now that you're in the all summer group.
It makes a difference. It does.
Awesome. Man, I love that, Jensen. I appreciate you, being open to share, that kind of a thing. And so do you think going through this experience, obviously, you've heard Heidi talk about being uncomfortable. You heard Maylee talk about suffering and how suffering can be good for us.
Yeah.
What did those talks this summer, because Maylee's a licensed counselor and she talked about how good that can be for us. How do you feel like you've grown going through something like this?
Oh, I feel like I have grown immensely. Just, from before that moment and from where I am now, the maturity level, and just having that sense of trust in the Lord that I didn't have before. You know, I feel like, honestly, I didn't have that personal relationship where I could just pray. I mean, there were nights where I was down on my knees like, God, please take this pain away from me, you know, and just being able to see that I was able to grow with him, through those hardships, like, and then being able to come out stronger on the other end, and also using that in ways that I didn't think I could, you know, and proving that there is hope, that there is, you know, that joy and that light that can come from those sufferings and those struggles. Definitely. I mean, literally, she hit it right on the ball with, you know, sometimes suffering can be a good thing when you look at it from a different perspective, just a positive one.
That's so good. You know, but the key is hanging in there.
Yeah.
The key is hanging in there,
Mhm.
right? Because, you know, there always is another side. There
Yeah.
always is, if we'll fight for it,
Yeah.
right? And we'll keep going and we'll get those people in our corner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's been my biggest message to our JCTs and stuff is we got to keep going, keep growing, and, you know, allow those people to help us through those moments. Have you been able to help people, you know, maybe in college, you know, even you got to feel more equipped at camp.
Oh, I do.
When a camper comes
It's
up to
next
talk to
level.
you, you're like, all right, I know kind of how to walk through, you know, in any situation,
Yeah.
really, you know, the healing, you know, it doesn't even have to be a traumatic event. It can just be, you know, whatever someone's going in a dark place, you know, it really is the answer of getting out of it. So you feel like as the Lord used you, if you had people come
Yes.
up to you that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe these people are coming up to me.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yeah, I've definitely felt that. And, you know, it goes to show that, like, you never know what people are going through and what they may be feeling. Because I have definitely seen just throughout my campers within the past 2 summers, you know, that it is a common theme that we don't realize how big of an issue mental health is and what these kids may be going through, different situations, you know, but God does provide that healing. And I feel like they definitely find that at this ranch because I know that I have throughout the years. So it has been incredible to watch that summer after summer and just feeling the Lord, you know, I don't know the words I'm speaking over them, but
Right.
God does.
That's
and
right.
He is using every single counselor that's here for the specific message that camper needs to hear. And it's awesome to watch.
I love that. Well, Jensen, we are so proud of you, and I appreciate you being so brave to come on here and share this because I just felt like your story and how strong you are today and what we've watched you walk through, I think is such a great example for others to see and follow and be encouraged in. And I hope as some of our people listen to this that they would hear it and, you know, maybe even reach out to you, you know, who
Yes,
knows,
sir.
and God would use this story, your testimony, your story, you know, as you share it. And so I appreciate you coming on here. I love your passion for Brook Hill. I love your life and, you know, just who you are. And we appreciate you carrying the vision of the counselors before you that really spoke into your life. So thanks for being on the podcast today.
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.